Welcome. I am Dr. Patrice Berry, and I am joined by my mom, Johnnie Lloyd. And today we are going to be talking about healing mother and father wounds. Let's hop right into the intro. You are listening to Legacy Moments, where we have authentic conversations about life, business, and so much more to transform your mind, body, and soul. I am Dr. Patrice Berry, and I am joined by my co-host and mom, Johnnie Lloyd. Together, we combine my years of psychological training with her years of business and leadership experience to add value to your day. All right. And so today we are talking healing mother and father wounds. And I think a good place to start with this is by defining what is a mother wound or a father wound. And I'll start out with a little bit that a mother and father wound, it can be this generational relationship, this generational dysfunction. So I've worked with people where they have a bad relationship with their mom, and their mom had a bad relationship with their mom. There was this generation and these cycles of negative relationships with a mother. And so being able to break those patterns, to break those cycles can be incredibly important.
Yeah, because those patterns and those cycles actually impact every area of your life. And not only does it impact the people generationally before you, it normally impacts your children and the way you interact with other people. And that's why this subject is so critical. Coming out of Mother's Day and going into Father's Day, but it's all the time. This is a wound that doesn't pop up just during a season. This is a wound that can impact every area of your life all the time. It's like a trigger. Something may trigger you or something like that. It is critical for you to understand it, know a little bit more of how to deal with it, and to move forward. So let's move forward, Patrice.
All right. And so there are some signs that you may have a mother or a father wound. And if I have difficulty accepting feedback, if I withdraw from others in the midst of conflict, if I have this desire to always be seen and heard, but never really feel seen or heard, this chronic ability where I always have to take care of myself, I have trouble depending on other people. And all of these wounds come from legitimate places. I can often, when I'm working with somebody in therapy, we can go back and know exactly where this happened. And we have something in us called an inner child. And I think during my Mother's Day live, we talked a little bit about healing inner childhood wounds. And Dr. Schwartz, he does internal family systems therapy and talks about these different parts of ourselves, that sometimes when we get in situations, there's this protector part that comes in to try to protect us from experiencing that negative thing again. But sometimes if I've been through a lot, sometimes these triggers, these things can pop up in neutral situations. They can even pop up in good situations.
And I love the way that you brought it out on one of your lives that you did when you asked the question, did you feel safe? Did anybody in the room feel safe? And you said the one person raised their hand, we think that they've been in one of the sessions before. The critical part about that is the way that our brain responds, even when we are in a safe place, is bringing up things that have happened or may have been connected to our past. And it's also connecting or triggering to things that's other there. She's happy. I can see the thoughts are just rolling. So go ahead, Patrice.
Because I think what's really important is recognizing and understanding that triggers, that I'm responsible for healing that trigger. And that trigger is often a sign that I need to heal that part. And the way that I like to look at healing is it is in spite of the other person, that my healing is in no way tied to them ever apologizing. My healing is in no way tied to them at all. It is my journey, because I've seen situations, I've seen things happen where it's like, okay, I'll move forward. I'll be happy when they finally do this or that. And even if the person does do the thing, it can still be hard. And I did want to note, dysfunction can function.
You can function in dysfunction, right?
And what I mean by that is because sometimes families are a system. And if I change the whole system, now sometimes what can happen is if I change, the system can then reject me. It can be like in Encanto, where the person that's trying to be the cycle breaker, the person that's trying to point out what's wrong within the system, that person can sometimes get ostracized. And so that is a real thing that happens. But being able to be that person that says, this is not okay, and I want things in my family to be different.
And part of what I think she's talking about and the way that I'm receiving it is that you take your control back. The way that you take your control back is freeing yourself from whatever the situation was, right? When you free yourself, you literally take your control, and then you're able to start taking steps to move forward. Now, in some of those steps, sometimes you can't take those steps alone, right? Sometimes you have to go out and you have to get assistance from a licensed professional. You have to walk through it and maybe journal. There's a lot of things that you can do. The one thing I'll recommend that you do is at the end of the day, do a gratitude journal, or at the beginning of the day, whichever one is better for you, right? And then to journal. When you start going through a process and you find out something has happened, or something is triggering you, or something is causing you, or there's a cycle that's happening and it's not giving you value, it's not adding value to others, and it's not causing you to do the things and be the person that you desire to be. And that is something that you have more control over than we normally give ourselves credit for.
And some people struggle with journaling. And so sometimes instead of a physical journal, I've worked with some people about doing a video journal. And it's not something that they post anywhere, that it's just something for them personally, for them to document. Or it could be taking a picture of that moment, of that thing that you're grateful for, because not everyone. But I do think physically journaling, looking back later, that can be helpful. But I do know that for some people, the thought of journaling, like they'll log off, like, nope, not gonna do it.
I like that. The thing about healing any place in our lives is, so sometimes we start healing and we heal the surface. However, underneath the surface is the wound that is still open and it's still infected.
And we are recording this live, and there was a really great comment. I like the thought, I need to take responsibility for my trigger instead of blaming my parents. So when I'm in that blaming position, I am in kind of a victim state, and what the person did was wrong. I have every right to be hurt in the midst of that, but I have to switch to being a survivor. So a survivor mentality, I take responsibility for I can't change other people. They did what they did, and that is a fact. And sometimes we're talking about healing from people that maybe they were passive aggressive, or we're not talking about trauma, because I do think that is a completely different category. And we talked a little bit about how different we can cope. Our brains try to cope with whatever we've been through. And sometimes we can develop patterns where the minute that a woman gives me some feedback, maybe that brings up a mother figure being very critical. So just for anyone who's new here, this is my mom, Johnnie Lloyd, and I'm Dr. Berry. I'm the licensed psychologist. She brings the business leadership, like she is a guru, probably a counselor. Like she probably could have been a counselor if that was a thing back then. But anytime you're working with people and their money, that can bring up a lot. And even especially within families, because often families, when you start to set boundaries around your time, when you set boundaries around your money, you can often see how people really feel. And sometimes you can see some negative things.
Not sometimes. A lot of times. So this is the deal. If you're looking at maybe there's a wound in your life, look at all the facets of your life. The three major facets that I ask people to look at your health, look at your wealth. And when I say wealth, I'm not just saying money, I'm saying your time, your energy, your relationship capital, right? Relationship with other people. And then look at you. Look at the way you feel about yourself, right? Because all of those three magnifies what you're really dealing with internally. And that is the critical piece. It's not that it's the only reflection, but it can be a reflection of what you're thinking, doing, or what may have happened. All of us, and even, people that think, I think when people think they've arrived, I think that's probably when they're not ready to thrive. Because Patrice talked about moving to a survivor mode, right? And we're also looking at opportunities for you to thrive. It doesn't change anything that has happened. It changes the way you're responding to what happened.
We got a great question. If we can answer, what is relationship capital?
Well, relationship capital is a term that I use when I help people understand. As Patrice said, I'm in the financial realm, right? And most people don't look at relationships as capital, as a high level.
Is it like asset liability?
It's bigger. It's like an asset. When I have
depends on the person.
Well, yeah. But then there's some dynamics. When I talk about relationship capital, I am talking about assets and liabilities, right? But however, I'm also looking at not just where they are in look at the balance sheet. Are they above the line, below the line? What do they add value to your life? Are you neutral? Some people in your life are neutral, right? But when you build, like some people talk about networking, I look at how can I add value in the room, in the space? How can I add value? And then I look for people that are adding value. So what is the capital? Most people succeed not based on just what they know. They succeed based on who and the relationships that they have. So relationship is a positive as to helping you, and you help them move forward.
And then I just want to go back to mother wounds, because sometimes what can happen is people can get addicted almost to trying to fix other people. And it's often at the expense of working on themselves. It's often a way of trying to work out their pain through helping others. And that's something that counselors, therapists, psychologists, nurses, doctors, anyone who's in a helping field, because often helpers get into helping because of their own pain. And so it can be really rewarding to be able to be there for somebody else. But if I don't have anyone who's ever there for me, that can bring up some mother wounds or some father wounds, feelings of abandonment, feelings of rejection, low self-esteem, issues with body. And I do want to get into, because I work with individuals that struggle with body image. And what can sometimes happen is, often in every case I've worked with, one or both of the parents also struggle with their own body image. And often they're bringing the child to me, like, fix this. But then there are little comments that are said, or the parent is making negative comments about their own body that is reinforcing how the child feels about themselves. And so that's where I talk about systems, that in order for there to be lasting change, like we have to all do something different, because the way that things are currently flowing, although it doesn't feel good, although it's dysfunctional, this is all that we know. And sometimes in some families, all they know is chaos. All they know is dysfunction. And so, yeah.
So one of the things that Patrice talked about is the dysfunctional part, right? So sometimes people have to determine what dysfunction is for you. Then the other thing that she talked about is sometimes people that are helping other people, we don't always take I'm going to call it medicine, take our own advice. Take our own advice. Helpers need help too, right? Because when people are dumping on you, or you getting all this energy, right? What can sometimes happen is you get heavy, but it is so rewarding when you get a chance to help someone else. The key with that I found as a coach is that one of the reasons that people love that is they don't have to focus on themselves.
It is easier. It is easier for me to help you than to help myself. But it benefits, but
It
that
benefits both
doesn't
of us if I help me.
exactly.
When I help me, let's do it in the positive. When I help me, when I am more self-aware,
Yes.
when we're talking about this, when we are more self-aware of who we are, whose we are, our role, and what we desire, that is critical. What we desire through this relationship or this situation, then we become more empowered. And we get a chance to celebrate, because if you enter into an area and you never have an expectation of what you want out of it, how do you know you succeed? So that is part of the key. So this is what I said, put your oxygen mask on first.
And a friend of mine is currently doing an online summit and talking about mother and father wounds. And something that she mentioned, and we didn't plan to both do these topics around the same time, but that often a father wound can trigger issues with identity and issues with purpose. And so being able to address those deeper wounds. So if I struggle with like a male boss figure, or with if it's just something about this person that's bringing up something else, because sometimes what can happen is, so trauma or negative experiences that haven't been processed all the way, they don't know time. So when that person does that today, it can bring up what happened when I was 7. And I can react in that moment as though I'm 7 and not my 40-year-old self today. And so being able to ground myself and be here in this moment. And so when I get triggered, when I get upset by things, I take a step back and I think, how much of this is really about this person?
That's a great question.
So that's something that so I step away and I take a moment to assess, is any part of this bringing up something else? And that does take some introspection. Sometimes that can be difficult. I'm thankful that I've had very good therapists in the past, and sometimes I was at a point where I needed to talk that out with somebody else. I wasn't able to do that work by myself, because the one thing I'll tell you about therapy, we are still in Mental Health Awareness Month. There is something powerful about a neutral person.
Oh my
So
God.
if I go to my mom and I'm like, was it me or was it them? And so in whatever she tells me, I'm going to think it's coming from her love of me. The fact that I'm her child, of course she's going to see my side, or of course she's going to, not be on, I don't know, like whatever I think. It's hard. The more intimate the relationship is, the harder it is for me to take their opinion as objective. But that's why boundaries with a therapist is so important, because when my clients come to me, like, if and I don't tell people what to do, but I give them feedback on, hey, this is what you said before, and this sounds a lot like this situation. What do you think? And they're like, oh yeah, that is. Or if I say, that had nothing to do with you, that sounds like that was the other person's problem. Because sometimes mother and father wounds, it is the adult, unfortunately, taking out their own wound on the child, which is not fair. And that's why I switched my work to help parents be able to better meet their needs so that they can be there for their kids.
Because when you help at that higher level, problems are typically solved, or issues are typically solved at a higher level than where you see them at. So like Patrice was just mentioning, when she supports and gives and help to the higher level, which is the parenting, right? Or the parents, then what happens is it trickles down. It flows in the relationship. It dominates that system, because each family has a normal processing system, right? So part of healing, when you look at healing, what are some of the things people can do to heal?
I think the first step is awareness, because sometimes, so I meet with people all the time, and one of the questions as a therapist I always ask is, so how would you describe your childhood, or how was your childhood? And it is normal to want to see the good in my childhood, And then it's also very validating to look back and think, I was kind of parentified. I kind of took care of myself. The adults maybe weren't always there the way I needed them to. And so those are facts. That's not saying my parent was lazy and they didn't care about me. So those are judgments. But the fact of, this is what I experienced, and when I can break it down to what actually happened, then sometimes people can look. So normally in any situation, so no parent's perfect. And I'm so glad. So my child is going, like, I'm gonna unfortunately say something, and I'm gonna apologize to him. But every child, I don't know a single person that doesn't have a mother or father wound or both.
Right. And what I love about what she said is, and was really important. She said a couple things that I want to tap into. One is that sometimes your parent is doing the best they know how to do. So the wound sometimes is not intentional.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't change the impact
Yes.
in your life, right? The other thing is, not every parent will or even know to apologize.
Yeah.
I was big on that. That didn't make everything perfect. And I did the best I knew how to do,
Yeah.
right? So the other thing is on two sides. Sometimes you have to forgive yourself, and including that, you have to forgive others to move forward. However, take the movement.
And I have a whole video on forgiveness, because when we say forgive, so
It's different.
If a parent is not safe, so I prioritize safety. But I do have some clients that maybe they have a parent that abuses substances, or they have a parent that has some particular issue. And we can say, hey, if I see them before 12, things are normally okay. But really, it's the evening time that I need to make sure that I'm gone before 3 p.m. Or I'm going to go to their house for Thanksgiving, but I'm going to drive my own car, and I'm going to schedule to meet with friends at 6 p.m. So I have it out. So I'm going to go in and be like, hey, I'm so glad. Yeah, I have something right after. And so I already have an out. I've also heard people talking about, when you go to an event, sometimes helping out in the kitchen, or sometimes you can kind of remove yourself from some of the dysfunction, because there are times, there are people, and there is a phenomenal comment here that talks about somebody being glad that they're here because they recently lost a parent, their best friend. The relationship was close, but it was complicated, and so there can be good and bad within the same person, within the same relationship. Relationships are often complex, and that's where I only believe in cutting off people when they are truly when they are not safe. And if there's no way for me to be safe around them, then it's like, nope, I just need to cut contact. But something that was incredibly helpful for me in my own healing journey was acceptance. And acceptance is not approval, but I have an individual in my life, and that individual is an apple. And I need an orange. And the harder I want for that person to be what I need, they just can't. They just don't have the ability to be there for me the way that I want or need them to be. But freeing them from having to do that, just accepting them, hey, like, I just can't get this from that person. It opens space for me to get that in healthy other places, instead of in compensatory. So instead of there being this huge hole that I then try to fill with food, with other negative coping things. And so being able to acknowledge it and accept the person where they are. And once again, that doesn't mean I approve or like it. What I need, it's okay that I need an orange. And then, but it's less frustrating for me, and it creates less suffering if I accept the fact that they're an apple.
And it empowers you, because then, I love what you said, it allows space. Hear this, y'all, don't miss this. It allows space for an orange to come in and fill that space. But when we're fighting, or when we're looking for somebody to be something that they're not, it causes us internal and external frustration, right? So the key with that is knowing what I need. That's the self-awareness. Knowing what I need, knowing who is able to provide what I need, knowing what's inside me that can give me some of the things I need, and getting help or support as you need it.
Because if I know that I have a family member that when something good happens in my life, they always want to compete with me. And so like they're not going to let me have it. They're not going to just say I'm so happy. And I'm giving a
General,
I'm giving a general thing. If I know that, I might not need to go to that family member when that good thing happens. I might need to go to friends. I might need to go to some other safe people first, and then we can go there. We got a phenomenal question. Is acceptance the same as letting go? So the way I see it, I see acceptance as and this is from the work of Dr. Marsha Linehan, acceptance being a part of a kind of, it comes out of like a Buddhist or a spiritual tradition where I am not fighting reality. So if it's raining, and I just straightened my hair, and if it's raining outside, suffering would be me sitting here being like, oh, why did it rain? Oh, like this is the worst day ever. Like my hair, this is going to be horrible. Acceptance is me saying, it's raining. I wish I had my umbrella. Like, let me do what I can, but nothing I can do about it. Okay. So letting go, I see that more of within like a forgiveness process. And if you haven't watched my video on forgiveness, because that is a journey, okay? There is an individual in my life. It took me probably 3 to 4 years to let go of the pain and letting go, because what I first do is I acknowledge what happened and that I have every right to hold on to it. But me holding on to it hurts me, and it doesn't hurt them. It doesn't hurt them at all. My negative feelings, whatever I'm holding on to, it often hurts me. I like the quote that talks about that unforgiveness is like taking poison and expecting the other person to. That holding on to that hurts me. Now, forgiveness is not reconciliation. I can forgive somebody and never ever talk to them again, and so that's how I see those things.
What are some of the things a person can do to either in therapy or for them in general that they can do maybe to help heal or walk through, acknowledge a father or mother wound?
So if you're in therapy and you want to address a mother or a father wound, you can definitely bring that up with your therapist. But if I'm doing it on my own, so there are some really great books. And one of my favorites is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. I will talk about that book for forever, because there's a lot of, because it talks about a lot of the things that the adult child will struggle with, that the person who's now an adult who grew up in that type of environment with a parent that was overly self-involved or that had some narcissistic traits, or if for some reason that parent wasn't able to meet those needs. I found that book to be helpful.
Favorite, one of our favorites, of course, is by Nidra Twa. Go ahead.
Set Boundaries, Find Peace.
And that is one of our favorites. And we've done a lot of things with this book. I mean, there's some episodes with this. And the reason that we love this book, this is one of our favorites. Listen to me, favorites as it relates to boundaries in every area of your life, whether it be work, whether it be relationship, wherever it is, it's going to help you with that. Because boundaries is not about that. It's you setting the boundaries and protecting your boundaries. Boundaries are not bad. Boundaries are to give you freedom. And this book is a great example of that. So if you haven't gotten the book, if you haven't done that, you might want to take a look at it.
So my mother raised me as a single parent, and I'm over here
choking. I know she's gonna make it. Y'all didn't see me go over and say, "Oh, I just keep on going." Okay, so let me. if she had really, did something, I would have done CPR.
Yeah.
But she made me take CPR for her child. So she made me take CPR for Langston for her son because she thought I need him alive when she come back. However, this is a great example of sometimes things will happen in your life. You need to know when to hold them, when to fold them, when to look.
No.
No.
I am not going to let her go there. I am not going to let her go there.
So y'all get a chance to see the extra that we do.
Wait.
Okay.
So
why am I the 2-year-old now? Okay.
She's this is my show.
You can tell who owned it, right? Go ahead.
So growing up, my mom did not allow me to be sick.
That's not quite true.
So I had a fear of needles, and she used it. So if I got sick, she would be like, do you need a shot? And if I was like, yeah, I think yeah.
I knew she was sick.
She knew I was really sick.
She's willing to take a shot. I need to take you to the hospital. I need to drink out from work. I need to do whatever is needed, right? And part of it was as a single parent who had once been homeless, who was building, and this is connected to this, y'all, because sometimes what your parent has been through is impacting them in ways you don't necessarily understand. Patrice she doesn't ever remember being homeless. No. She don't remember sleeping on somebody's orange shag carpet. She don't remember sleeping on my chest. Or even she don't remember none of that.
When we moved to Japan, sleeping in a Momma Johnnie, not having a bed.
Y'all know what a Papa San chair is? So her and my sister was sleeping in a Papa San chair because we had no furniture. So she doesn't remember in there. Had the great job, looking great on the outside. So just because you look great on the outside, because things are being managed, doesn't mean you don't have a wound. It does not mean you don't have a wound. So this is the key. The key is that there were certain questions I'd ask her. I said, like the thing about the needle. She said she needed a needle is on. Now she also had a medical issue, and when she started doing certain things with her wheezing, because she was diagnosed with something with asthma, I would be the first one in the hospital. I don't care what was going on. Everything was shut down. The whole base could close down as far as I was concerned. I was in the hospital with my child. So it was that. However, I'm a least excuse person because me taking off meant a whole nother level because of the position I had, because of the responsibility I had. We didn't get a chance to work from home. Can we say that? We didn't have those. So now, so now she does some of the things I did to her. She does to her child. Okay, I want to clarify that. So anyway.
So, and I'm thankful that my husband. So y'all, I was working out in the yard, and I wasn't paying attention, and I made a mistake, and I ended up severely injuring my fingers. And so I went to my husband and I was like, should I go to he was like, you need to go to the ER. He's like, you need to go now. And I because our son was 2 or 3 at the time, and he must have been 2 because he stopped taking naps during COVID. He was sleeping. So I drove myself to the hospital, and I ended up I got my stitches.
She called me.
My mom came up and she finished, because I was working in the yard. She finished the yard. When I got back from the hospital, we went back to Lowe's or Home Depot and got more.
And mulch. I did the work. She didn't work.
But I helped pick up some of the bags and stuff.
Oh, I'm sorry. She picked up some of the mulch with her issue. This is the big deal, though, is that we have to be careful, because when we take a tool that was meant to do other things with, and it hits our flesh. Hear me, y'all. It hits your flesh.
It's like a wound.
The way that it hits is a wound.
Yeah.
And so the damage that can be done is dramatic.
And that wound would have never healed, because I tried to go to patient first, and patient first was like, you need to go to the ER.
They said, no, you're above our level.
You need to go to the ER. And
she's not allowed to use that tool anymore, by the way.
I'm banned from ever using it again.
But that's a great example.
And just so I am fine. So my allergies are and the reason why I didn't go live on Tuesday is because my throat has been it's change of seasons. We're in Virginia. I forgot to take my allergy medicine this morning. Just all the things.
Okay, so I'm gonna lean in, y'all. Okay, so but let me say this. Part of part of what we do is, I'm glad that example happened.
Yeah.
Because somebody out there is going to look at it and say, oh my God, is she okay? And they will say, she just kept on working with the book. Well, the book is this and da 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 da. She act like they're in two different places. So it's, what have you become used to? And is what you become used to normal? Or is it something that's abnormal and you might need to shift to do something else?
So something that I try to do for my child is I try to be a little bit more like, so yeah, I try to be a little bit more. Yes. And the one thing that I will say is, you can't do what you've never seen. And so when I was raised, me and my partner, with us raising our child, I have had to read books. I have had to look at these things. Part of the reason why I find so many resources is because I need them in my own life, and then I help give them to clients. But the thing I love about the Set Boundaries, Find Peace book is because sometimes the things that I'm upset about, I haven't told anyone. So if I'm upset that my friend always calls me at 11 p.m. every night, and I try to give hints like, oh, girl, you again? But I answer the phone and I never ask the person to not do the thing. And so part of a boundary is me saying, hey, you can call after 10 if you want. I'm not going to pick up, but that's me being passive aggressive. So a better way to say that would be, please don't call after 10 p.m. Like, I'm shutting down, unless it's a true emergency.
Right.
Let's talk about what emergencies are.
Yeah.
An emergency isn't there's a sale at whatever store or something. Like,
so this is the way I do, because I shut down. Really, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning most of the time. So my
phone doesn't even ring after.
And so at 9 o'clock is this danger zone. However, when she was pregnant, what I did is I did a special ring. We made sure that she could, her call would come through and all that good stuff. So there's some things you can adjust, right? However, I do have somebody that I'm dealing with right now in my life. And so what I told them is that I shut down at 9:30. Hear what I said. I shut everything down at 9:30. So I'll deal with anything that you have. I can deal with it in the morning. They said, what if it's an emergency? I said, we're all adults. If it's an emergency, just like anybody else, they said, call 911. Now, I did that with a straight face. It is a little passive aggressive. I admit it.
We're working on it.
I'm working on it. But I did it in love, because what I did was I tried to do the other things and it wasn't working. So I needed, because they're in another time zone. Let's talk about that.
Okay, there we go.
So they were in another time zone. So because of that, they were not even thinking, right? So you just have to help yourself.
And a boundary, I will say it again, a boundary is, hey, if you call after 9:30, if you call after 10, I'm not going to pick up. Like, hey, it's going to go to voicemail. Make sure to leave a detailed message if it's that serious. Text me, but I don't answer the phone, versus saying just to not call, because that is a request. A boundary is about what I'm willing to do, what I'm not going to do. A boundary is about me, and I have every right to set boundaries. And sometimes we grow up in households, we grow up in families that don't allow us to say no. So my child, this morning, today was wear green day. And I realized it after he was already dressed. And I was like, it's wear green day. Do you want to wear green? And he was like, no, I have green in my shoes. I have green on my book bag. I was like, all right, not a problem. Like, he doesn't lose points for not wearing. Like, there's no issue with him. That wasn't a battle that I needed to fight with him. And so as a parent, picking and choosing and giving him autonomy to be him. So something that happens, and this can sometimes create a mother and a father wound, is when parents live through their children. Because that is so detrimental to not only the child, but also the parent. Because sometimes the parent didn't make the cheerleading team, or the parent didn't, take AP classes, or the parent. And so they're putting all of this on their child. And when the child, maybe they don't even like cheerleading, they don't even want this. And so giving my child space to be them. Now, there are cultures where like you're a reflection on the family, and sometimes, but if the individual I'm working with, if they are more, if they want to kind of step away from some of those things, sometimes we talk about ways to set what we call sneaky boundaries. So I work with some people that are from Asian cultures that really value education. And sometimes the person, they might want to set boundaries about not going home every weekend. And so they might say, Mom and Dad, I know how much my grades mean to you, so I'm only going to come home once a week. That's a sneaky boundary. Because really, they wanted to spend time with their friends. Like they it wasn't only the grades. But they picked something that was important to the other person, and they paired that with what's important to them.
That's cool. So the thing that I would say, and I don't know if you shared the other books that you had. Let her share the other books, because I think both of them are really powerful.
So I haven't finished reading. So Nedra Tawwab, so this was her first book, The Set Boundaries, Find Peace. That was the first book. Sorry. And I have all of these. There's an Amazon link. I have all of those there. And then my book is Turning Crisis into Clarity, How to Survive or Thrive in the Midst of Uncertainty. And within there, we talk about, there's a survive section, and then there's a whole section on thriving. Because sometimes the first thing I need to do is just get through this difficult situation. If I'm not currently safe, I can't thrive. Like you need safety in your current situation in order, because sometimes the survival skills that I picked up, I might need those in this current situation if it's not safe.
So do you want to talk about, we've already talked about techniques. We talked about what mother and father wounds are. We've talked about some of the things you may see in that. We've talked about the importance of healing for yourself and to empower yourself. We've even given you some information about boundaries. What else would you share with them moving forward?
So my final thought, my final takeaway is going to be, I want to repeat that quote that I saw recently, that a trigger is a reminder of this part of me that needs some healing. Mm-hmm. And so I am responsible for my triggers. I am responsible for my healing. Because sometimes what we do is we just want other people to not trigger us, which is harder. So, and that's actually, that's more of that victim mindset of y'all just don't make me mad and we'll be okay. Versus me saying, okay, I know being with my family for more than 2 or 3 days, I know that's not good for me. So I'm only going to go for 2 days. And that lets me manage it. Or I'm not going to stay at the house. I'm going to get a hotel. Knowing those little things and taking ownership of that part of the healing, I think that can be incredibly helpful.
Wow.
Ooh.
Got a good
So
one?
we have a good question. Can you talk about the lingering grief from parental wounds and family estrangement? So we might have to do a whole episode.
That's deep.
I think we should do a whole episode on that. Just quickly, family grief, because sometimes I have to grieve the parent that I wanted. And that was part of that acceptance journey for me, because there was nothing wrong. If y'all missed the orange and apple analogy, there's nothing wrong with me wanting this thing from a particular parent. And yet I might have to grieve that I may never get it. Or I might have to grieve that when I set these boundaries, because these people are toxic and not safe, they might cut me off. They might turn on me. So just so you know, your healing can sometimes trigger other people's trauma. Your healing can sometimes trigger other people's trauma, because when we all just like are all dysfunctional together, once again, dysfunction can function. Versus me saying, wait a minute, the way we talk to each other, and that's something our family has done recently, because our family could get pretty mean. But like, if you were in the, like, we were kind of used to it, which might not be good. So my thing was I don't want my child to be treated better outside of his family than within his family. So if I wouldn't tolerate a bully at school saying that to my child, why does my cousin or uncle get to get to say that to him? No. Or if I wouldn't accept, if I don't yell and scream, and our family wasn't yelling and screaming, but my brain, I can't handle.
We're passive. To be honest, we're passive aggressive. I mean, she's trying to dance around it. So we're passive aggressive. All of us extremely intelligent, right? And we take big words. We take big words and work you. And it was cute.
And it was fun.
Cultivated. However, it wasn't healthy.
I didn't like I thought the younger generation might look at that and possibly see, because to me, younger generations are healing and they're acknowledging things, they're talking about things that my generation was just like, this is normal. That's why I work with so many 40, 50, 60-year-olds that are getting diagnosed with ADHD that they never knew they had, because the parents just use, like, they would just get hit when they didn't listen. And so they tried to just listen. And so being able to change and monitor that, complex lit. So this is my mom, and this is just how we are. She is my best friend. I hope my best friends don't watch this, but she is very important to me. I'm not close with all of my family, and so I could really relate to the question that was about grieving family estrangement. And so please know that you also have your chosen family. So I hope my family doesn't watch this.
No, they can watch it.
They can watch it. Okay. So I have a best friend that is like a sister to me, and we are very, very close. And I think because of some unforgiveness in the past, because of some anger, bitterness, and hate that I had in my own heart growing up as a child, it impacted other relationships in my life, which is why I'm so passionate about talking about these things.
Yeah. And the thing about it is remember this, is that just when we change, everything in our sphere changes. It doesn't mean we enjoy the change, but we have to enjoy our change. We have to be committed to our change and what we desire in our lives, right? So then as you move forward, everybody else gets a chance to make a decision. And so I love what Patrice said. You have the family that you were born into, and then you have the family that you chose. And both families are extremely important. And you have great relationships with them, because I value the reason I talk about relationship capital is because relationships are powerful and I value them at that level, right? However, that doesn't mean everybody stays in the same place all the time. I remember growing up, one thing was happening, but then now that all of us are older, our relationship has manifested into something even bigger and better than it was.
And that's because so each person continued to change and grow. Because when sometimes as I heal, like I said, if nobody else does their work, sometimes that can create friction and because what they do is they try to bring you back to where they are if they aren't actively working on themselves. Go ahead.
And that's why we need to take this another level, because when people try to take you back, because to touch a trigger or to do something to bring you back, it's for two reasons. To remind you, you ain't right. You thought you would change, but you're not. And the other thing is to control. That's two of the reasons I can think of off the top of my head. The deal with it is when you don't respond, and that's why it's healing the wound. Because when somebody presses it, now you respond like that, right? But if I press it and you're healed,
then I might still feel it. There might be pressure. And depending on the day, because if I got sunburnt, I don't know, depending, because old wounds can reopen.
That's good. So that's the key. And then this relationship is has been a work at
and we both give each other feedback.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like the 2-year-old. Remember earlier, y'all? I thought that's what.
Okay, so I'm gonna go
closer
here.
to 70 than I am to.
My favorite feedback that I ever gave my mother, and it's about learned helplessness. Because my mother, when she came home from work, she needed to find something wrong. Now,
this is gonna be good. This is good, y'all.
Now,
this is good.
Now, granted, I am a bit of a messy person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I probably have undiagnosed ADHD. It's a whole thing. But so what would happen is when she would come home from work, when I was in like 10th, 11th, 12th grade, she would need to, it was probably because we were in the house. So it must have been 11th or 12th grade. She just needed to find something wrong. And so she the minute she hit the door, she would be like,
pause for just a second. It's not that I needed to find something.
there were things wrong.
There was things wrong. However, let me tell you the difference. And this is where, and this is golden. Be careful with bringing who you are from your job into your home.
Yes.
What I was paid for, and I was well paid to do this, is to find anything that was out of sorts. If it was missing, if it was any gaps, that's what I was trained to do. So I brought that wonderfulness to my house. So then back to Miss Amazing.
Because I could see she was getting more and more frustrated because I was trying less and less.
Yeah.
And so what I told her is I was like, hey, when you come home, when the first thing you do is if you tell me all the things that are wrong, I have no motivation to do anything right. Because what would happen is if I tried to clean up after myself, but I didn't wash the dishes, or if I didn't wipe out the microwave, or if I didn't wipe off the counter, then like she would be like, oh, you didn't, I asked you to clean the kitchen. Why didn't you clean off the stove? Why would I clean off you asked me to wash the dishes. I washed the dishes.
Here, the first two or three. Don't give them 5, 15 things to do. They're not going to remember all of that.
Especially if they have ADHD.
Especially, undiagnosed that done that. But anyway, but the reason we're laughing about this is she taught me something. Go ahead with it.
Because then I said that, like, hey, I need you to come home. I need you to say, oh, Patrice, how was, like, good job. Like, oh, wow, you tried. Because I would leave these breadcrumbs. So like because like when I wasn't trying, it would be like, oh, so you had cereal and you made a sandwich because the bread is still out. And like.
And the spoon and the mayonnaise or whatever. It's like, I can walk, literally. I can figure out everything you did for the whole day. It was like.
But when she did that, I only had to clean up what I did. I didn't have to wipe off the microwave. I didn't have to wipe off the stove. And so it was like, I win. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time before you got home. And so
it was a win for her, right? It was a win. Like, I'm going to enjoy my time. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. When she get here, she's going to freak out anyway. So let her freak out, right? So this is the thing I'm going to tell you as a parent and as someone who loves your family, because it could be your spouse, it could be anybody, right? Your significant other. Know what really matters. Know what really matters. Don't give them, if it has to be pristine, then put that on you. If you are maybe a little OCD, organized or whatever, put that on you. But the other thing is, when you're stressed from work, that may not be the right time to come and engage with the people that you love. So I learned to, and I did it, and she told the boys when they came and stayed with me, she said, if she walks in the door and she goes straight upstairs, don't touch her. Don't talk to her. Don't look at her. Right? Because I had a very high, it was well paid, but it was extremely high stress. So I would go upstairs. I would get myself together. This is a moment so that you don't harm anybody else. Go upstairs, get yourself back in the zone, whatever zone that is. You're the mother now. You're whoever you need to be right now in this moment. Be great in that moment. So then shift and then go downstairs. And Patrice told him, she said, she gonna cook. I know ain't no food good, but she gonna cook. She gonna throw down. She gonna do all this. But just give her time, because you're gonna like the other person that come back a lot more than you like the person if you tap her to go up. So that's what, find out who you are, what it takes for you. Give yourself the space to get back in your zone so that you can be beneficial for others. But more than that, so you can be, now I'm looking over like, okay, sorry, now I feel bad. No, anyway, so you can be beneficial to yourself, because you want to always add value. Does that mean that you're going to be perfect? No. Are you going to do things? Yeah, things are going to happen. Go back to the apology or awareness or whatever. Go ahead.
I absolutely love this. Thank you all for. I'll be all right.
I am so. Oh, you still got coffee?
Yes.
I was going to say, I just want to make sure. See, you see how what you see what just happened? Don't touch my stuff. I was trying to see the reason. See the reason. I mean, I'm just saying. See the reason.
I'm sorry.
So see, I tried to help her, and she's all like, "What? That's mine. Don't drink my coffee."
We gotta go.
We gotta go, y'all, because I got clients and she got business.
I got stuff to do. I hope y'all have a good rest of your day. If you have topics that you all would like to see us cover, please let us know. We record this podcast about once a month, but if like y'all are really interested, if we're flowing, we could maybe do 2 times a month over the summer. We will see. But we hope y'all enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.